problems faced online are solved by simply rebooting the device. It's advisable to allow time if this is needed. However, with larger host sites, we typically advise that it is good practice to do a host site test to iron out any technical niggles should they exist. Let's talk for a moment about the second screen experience which Sardius provides. With screencasting becoming an increasingly popular way of engaging with an event, especially within a host site context, the question is then asked how members of the host site can engage in some of the context-giving and interactive features of the online event, such as how attendees can find out details of who is presenting now, what is coming up, or how the host site audience can engage in chat or ask questions or respond to polls or trivia questions. The solution to this challenge has been the creation of a second event experience, which simply includes those interactive features and is built primarily for the mobile device. This can be used in host site situations as well as actually on-site in a physical in-person event, and gives you as the event producer the added benefit of obtaining better quality analytics from the event than simply receiving that one IP address which is casting on the big screen. Now you have all of the participants participating and you can get all of that data. Reaching a global audience, time zones and language. During the COVID-19 lockdown, many people have longed for the return of in-person events. There are certainly many benefits to being in the same physical location as other attendees. However, there are similarly a number of benefits that cannot be achieved with an in-person event. We've already addressed the ability for presenters to join the event from all around the world. And this global nature also applies to opportunities related to broadcasting of the event. If a hybrid event is taking place in, say, California, there would previously have been an expectation that if someone in Europe wished to join with that live event at 7 p.m., say in Los Angeles, they would have to be watching at 3 a.m. in London. Ugh. However, if your event has a sizable global audience, or if one of your metrics is to increase the number of global attendees, there are a number of adjustments you can effect to make the event more accessible to these global attendees. Number one, translate the broadcast. This can be done as an alternate audio stream or with closed captions. Secondly, translate the whole experience. This entire event experience can be translated into target languages. Not just the broadcast, but everything around it is translated into the target language. Thirdly, adjust the timing of the event. With the advent of CCEMLA, it's absolutely possible to host the event in the desired time zone of a targeted global audience. So you may have it at 7 p.m. in Los Angeles, but you can also have another experience in London and another experience in Seoul, South Korea. So those are just a few of the things that you can do to engage your global audience and for you to think intentionally about how you can engage not only an American audience, but a European audience and an Asian audience. Networking is one of the principal goals of many events. The question of how you can effectively connect with the right people at the right time is something that Sardius is trying to perfect on an ongoing basis. There are often a number of motivations that attendees have in coming to events. For some who are power networkers, they are often there essentially to sell, whether it's themselves, their products, or even their ideas. For others, they are on a discovery mission to find the best solutions to their challenges. Some are highly motivated to meet with the people they need to meet with, and others want to simply lurk and not network at all. Satisfying the needs of all types can be a challenge. There are a number of solutions out there that provide a serendipitous type of networking that you may have at a physical event. We believe networking and the ability to exchange online business cards doesn't have to be this hit or miss experience, and can be more intentional than that which can be found in in-person events. One component of networking in an online event is networking around ideas or on the basis of geographic location or affinity group. And we've already looked at this a little bit when we looked at watch parties in the main plenary sessions or breakout rooms. This is a great way to engage around ideas or unique challenges for individuals in geographic locations. And somebody says something that you like, and you can respond to them and actually network around those ideas. This is a great way of networking, and I might add, it's not really easy to implement that as a feature in a physical event. Another way to network is in the exhibition hall itself. The exhibition hall is known by various names: Expo, Sponsor Hall, Resource Center. This is a component of an event that can provide a main funding mechanism for the event producer. And in much the same way as a physical exhibition does, in the virtual experience that the Saudius platform provides, sponsors have the opportunity to upload promotional videos and other materials that they would often have at a physical booth, as well as including links to other online resources. The chat window on the sponsor page allows for general discussion and networking around the services that the sponsor offers in real time. And then people can go on to have further one-on-one video conversation. For further, more direct, intimate conversation, people can go into a chat room and talk one-on-one. So that's pretty much all there is for this section. So let's go through our checklist. While there are many benefits for event broadcasts to occur in real time with an audience experiencing the event at the same time, there are different benefits in both supplying an event with extra video-on-demand content. This may be extra content that you build into the event intentionally from the outset of the event, maybe content related to the main sessions and breakouts, and maybe related to different audience segments. Or it may be the post-event video on-demand content. It's helpful for you to give some thought regarding how you would like the event to look after the live portion of the event is over. The immediate purpose for video on-demand content is as a catch-up service so that your attendees don't miss the content that has just occurred. This may be through including a basic DVR functionality on the live player, or having video-on-demand archives available to access immediately after the session. For catch-up purposes, you will often find that people will access this archive content close to the event. However, this demand will often gradually tail off. While you can archive your content by event session 1, 2, 3, 4, if your event has a strong speaker lineup and subject flow, it may be wise to include video archives that can be organized by speaker, by topic, or by any other genre of metadata that you've selected. Our experience shows that even old archival content can be resurrected with new demand if placed in the right setting. If building a strong post-archive experience is something you want to achieve, it's important that when you're planning for the event, you ask the basic permissions that are needed for this to happen. On the Sardius platform, we will help you create what we call the quote-unquote post-event, which is what the event will look like to the event audience or any other audience who subsequently signs up to the event after it is finished. With this being the case, it's important to finish the event strongly and provide thought as to how you can maximize the benefit of the experience. Unlike an exclusively on-site, in-person event, a virtual event gives you the opportunity to create a more curated, ongoing experience for a much longer time after the actual live event has finished. Determining the right analytics. Now, this little part of our guide could have been placed near the beginning, as it goes hand in hand with determining your metrics of success. However, it is also typically the last part of the event. It's important with any event that you look back retrospectively and determine your successes and your failures, the areas that can be improved and the areas that need to be dispensed with in the future. With online events, it is in some ways easier to determine the level of engagement in each component of the event, as you have the ability to quantify to some degree how your audience engaged with each video and part of the event. There are a number of ways that Sardius sets up analytics. However, as with many aspects of the world-changing event, how you set up analytics is determined in many ways by what you need to see to establish whether the event has been successful. The analytics we receive are based on, firstly, player statistics. The built-in statistic engine on the Sardius platform is focused on stats around the video players in your event. This means that there are many and varied analytics around the demographics of who watched your video content, where they watched it from, on what device they watched it on, how long they watched it for, which content they skipped, and which they engaged in. In addition to those video player analytics, you can also get page analytics. We also have this ability to apply your Google Analytics account to different components of the event. This also includes your sponsor's ability to include their Google Analytics account on their sponsor experience, which gives you the ability to track page views versus player views. This can give you the ability to track how many individuals click through on certain calls to action. And some of these calls to action may be key to your key metrics in the event. Ultimately, there's no silver bullet to ensure without a shadow of a doubt that your event will be successful. There's inherent risk involved in pretty much everything in life. However, if you follow the steps outlined in this guide, you have a much greater chance of not only knowing what you want to achieve, but actually achieving it. Obviously, as the size and the complexity of your event grows, the checklists of tasks to complete the event successfully will grow. If you're already a Sardius client, our event management team is waiting to get into those many lists of tasks that have to be completed so that you will have a world-changing event. If you're not a client, our business development team is really open to having a conversation about whether Sardius is the right platform for you at this moment to take your event to the next level. No matter if you use Sardius or not, we're rooting for the success of your events and your organization. And I thank you so much for taking the time to go through this event guide. There's a reason why the framers of the US Constitution included the right of the people to peaceably assemble in the First Amendment. The reason is that history changes when people gather and exchange ideas. Be it the early church who gathered 2,000 years ago to the recent gatherings of the Arab Spring. Countries change, companies change, and individuals change when people gather, often providing the high watermarks of our lives. Just think about it. My bet is that your life has been changed by an event where people gathered, you exchanged ideas, and your life changed as a result. Well, hi, I'm John Hall. I'm with Sardius Media, and I want to take you on a journey over these next few videos to help you ask the right questions about your proposed event and ultimately get you the right answers. As you consider your upcoming event, you may not be thinking of an outcome as earth-shattering as those historical events I just mentioned. After all, you may only be planning your quarterly leadership gathering of your organization, the annual get-together. However, if you really want to achieve the change you so dearly would love to see in your organization or movement, perhaps the event you are planning can create the momentum that you so desperately need. You just need to be intentional about it, and that is what these videos and this guide is all about. Now, of course, I'm representing Sardius Media, and in these videos, it's a given that we're going to be leaning pretty heavily in the direction of what makes a great online event. However, I'm hopeful that the journey we go on will be helpful no matter what type of event you're putting on. The questions we ask throughout these videos will hopefully lead you to clarity regarding what you want to achieve and how you can achieve it. We'll move from one video to the next, from big picture questions to the more technical online aspects of your event. We're rooting for your event success and hope that the following video and guide will help you navigate these waters. I'm looking forward to our time together. Let's get into it. Often when you're starting to think about your event, you have something in your mind. Maybe it's a full room, a conference center, or a stadium buzzing with life and activity. And immediately, what typically happens is you go into planning mode to see how you can achieve that goal. But I want to encourage you to go back just a little bit further before we begin the planning phase and ask some more existential questions. So number one, I want to figure out your why. Whether you're having an in-person event or an online event, one of the first things you need to determine is what exactly the metrics of your success are in the event. These metrics are not primarily related to the number of people attending the event, although getting a big crowd may certainly be connected to your metrics. If you're hosting a product or a service launch, your ultimate goal will be related to the sales that are derived from this event. The amount of people who attend the event may therefore be a key indicator of success, but getting the wrong crowd that results in very few sales may lead you to adjust your strategy later on. In this regard, just getting the big crowd might make you feel good in the moment, but it would be more helpful for your team to talk about the real metric of sales and plan towards that particular goal. Now, if your goal is to communicate your vision to your super fans, your radical core audience, having a huge crowd with hundreds of thousands of people may surprisingly actually work against your main metric. If your audience wants to be addressed as if they are the only one that matters, including them just as one of the many thousands of the audience may be a bad idea. So I want you to think deeply about the metric of success, whether it's online or in person, and work with your team to achieve that particular goal. Now, let's translate some of these thoughts to putting on an online event. Now, in the TV industry, getting the eyeballs is a key indicator of success. Large numbers are also attractive to online broadcasters as they can result in advertising revenue. The strategy for engaging your audience online may be the same, simply gathering a big crowd. And if a simple big crowd is the objective, then maybe the right strategy is simply to go out on all the platforms like YouTube and Facebook. But if you're really honest with yourself and think about it, your goal is probably more than simply the eyeballs. And so when you think about it, there are some limitations to that strategy. Maybe you don't want to simply give away all your audience's data to those particular social media platforms. Maybe you want to serve them yourself. And that's why we're seeing the emergence of many OTT media platforms. Previously, you would watch content through the major media outlets, ABC, NBC, BBC, now Facebook and YouTube. And now the content makers are going, quote unquote, over the top to reach their markets directly. Think about Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, and the multitude of other niche brand video channels who are engaging their core audience directly. Getting to know who your core audience is, your super fans, your radical core, and engaging them around topics that are relevant to their life may be a more efficient and effective way to energize your people, who will then leave the event and immediately sell the vision to 10 more of their friends and therefore grow your superfan radical core. Now, choosing the right type of event is important. There are different types of people, there are different types of objectives, there are different types of events. It's important to understand the difference between meetings. In some meetings, you need to achieve deep collaboration between attendees, while other gatherings are about gathering as many people as you can to mobilize them behind a specific vision. Sometimes you need an intimate fundraising banquet, and other times it's a rock concert that you're after. There's no right type of event which is better than another, but it is important to recognize what you're trying to achieve and choose the right medium to communicate exactly what you need to. Now, there generally is a right type of event for what your present needs are, and you shouldn't spend a whole bunch of time and money and then later on realize that you've made a poor choice to achieve the desired goals. And so that is why I want to encourage you to be intentional in figuring out the right medium. The rationale and motivation for an online event is just as important as the rationale and motivation for an in-person physical event. There's not one type of online event that you have to go down. It's often possible to mimic the aspects of a physical in-person event when you're having an online equivalency. However, it's important to recognize the differences between online and in-person events. Simply being online means you are communicating in another medium, and while this offers many benefits over in-person events, there are similarly many elements that cannot and shouldn't be reproduced. Online communication is better for intense, effective, focused, interactive information sharing, as well as focused networking, one-on-one meetings. While physical events can be much better for creating space and time, more serendipitous networking, having meals, coffees, and walks. Similarly, you will never experience the intense, ear-bleeding, emotionally high experience of being in a mosh pit at a concert online. However, you can experience a perhaps more intimate, artistic experience through a broadcast feed. It's also important that you think in a correct manner about your financial budget. It is so possible for you to lose a significant amount of money in organizing a large-scale event. However, it is important also for you to consider the financial aspects in the right way. As with many endeavors in life, it's also important not to underestimate the potential financial benefits and use false economy in planning your events. Many of the components of a successful event will involve spending, and this includes your stage lineup, your production budget, or broadcast distribution budget. Often your event will only be as strong as the weakest link. For example, you may decide to go big on funding a high-end speaker or band and then skimp on the production budget. In most scenarios, this would be a bad decision. And the same is true for online delivery of your event. There are some amazing solutions being offered on the market at the moment, and it's important that you don't skimp on providing an amazing experience for your audience. Now, we have advised many event coordinators who are hosting large events, and often the first component that is considered is the lineup of presenters on stage. Maybe it's famous bands and speakers who will have the ability to gather a crowd. Gifted and charismatic stage personalities are great, and they may form a component of your overall strategy. However, it's imperative that before you invite any presenters, you are clear about your metrics and your narrative. Now, the narrative is the story behind your event, the reason why your audience will want to attend your event rather than the other events where the same speakers and the bands will be attending. Discovering your narrative is typically a process which begins with discovering your why in hosting the event and the why your attendees have for attending.